again. This is 3PN with another episode of our Ahsoka recap and review series. This is going to be over Chapter 7, Dreams and Madness. Just a couple housekeeping notes. And there's been a pretty long break in between the last, it was the holidays, Thanksgiving, all that. We like to spend time with our families, so we apologize for that. But we're going to get back up and running here. The next two episodes are it, right? This is the penultimate episode, if you want to call it that, and then episode 8 is the finale, if I'm not mistaken. So we have that. We also have some news that our other buddy who's going to be joining us for our our main podcast, whatever you want to call it. They just got to take their kid home. So
did they? I didn't hear that yet. That's awesome.
Yep, their boy is home with them. I was just talking to him this morning. I said, "Are you guys getting any sleep?" So
probably not.
He said, she's taking most of the night shift. He's getting up once a night to feed and go back to bed and whatever. So they're learning what it is to be a new parent. So that's kind of cool. So I'm sure we'll hear about that once we start recording our main podcast. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's one part that I haven't experienced because obviously my kids are a little bit older once I came into their life. So we'll see if I can convince the wife to create another one.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. You got how are your holidays? Anything over Thanksgiving? You guys have a good time?
Yeah, it was pretty good. We spent our Thanksgiving over at a buddy's place. Most of his family is German, so it was good for my kids because they're a little picky with food, and so it was nice having a sort of quasi-German Thanksgiving. So there was actual food there that they liked. Last year we tried to take him to a friend's house for Thanksgiving, and it was really good food, but it was all like traditional American Thanksgiving food, and they weren't really into that, I guess. So this year they had a little bit more food that they liked. We also brought some food that their mom, my wife made, and so they actually got to eat a little bit and enjoy themselves to an extent.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That's got to be wild having like a Thanksgiving in another, like not in the U.S.
Yeah,
just trying to find people to go and spend time with.
It's crazy. I guess we've talked about our personal lives a little bit for anyone that hasn't puzzled it together yet. I am in the military, and so like holidays are always kind of strange because 9 times out of 10, like you're not with the family that you grew up with, but we all create these familial bonds with the people that we work with, and so we still celebrate with our families, just not in a traditional sense. And when you're younger, holidays normally include a lot more booze. But now that, we're adults and have to drive cars, can't do that anymore.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys had a good time, and I'm looking forward to Christmas. I'm actually driving home back up to Ohio to see everyone for Christmas, so I can't wait for that. I haven't seen anybody for a while, so yeah. It's going to be like a 14-hour car ride, so
Is Meme still in that same place that she was at, I guess, last time I was home?
Yeah.
Over by BG?
Yep, she's still there. That's where we're going to go spend Christmas there. We're going to go see my dad and everybody, so I'm looking forward to them. Everyone's seen Jackson, he's getting bigger and talking more and all kinds of stuff.
I've seen some of the videos that you put up on him. He's definitely growing like a weed.
Yeah, I love it. All right, well, let's get into Chapter 7. All right, we left off with Sabine reuniting with Ezra. The witches basically telling Thrawn that Ahsoka is on her way. That's pretty much where we left off. Chapter 7 opens with Hera standing in front of the council, basically being dressed down by that Senator Ziono, that dude. We already know he kind of hates her. They have a bit of a back and forth, both of them jabbing at each other, and C-3PO shows up. And tells the council that Hera was acting on orders from Senator Organa, and then tells Ziono that basically if there's any other objections to the matter, that he can address them directly with her.
Yeah.
And that pretty much shuts him up. The Chancellor, the council ends, right? They kind of let her on her way, no punishments, nothing like that. And the Chancellor approaches Hera and tells her basically, she sees through the ruse, but asks Hera how serious of a threat is Thrawn's return.
Mm-hmm.
And Hera tells her, we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And obviously doesn't really do much to squash any hopes that maybe it's not as real as they think. But
Yeah.
I think the Chancellor obviously takes her word pretty seriously. And that's what we open with.
Yeah, this scene is there's kind of a lot to unpack with it. Both with that one senator that's just always in her way and always trying to screw her over, and the way that she deals with it, and with C-3PO and all that happening. I know they sort of, with a lot of this new Star Wars stuff, they keep Princess Leia, or I guess now Senator Leia, in the periphery, and I think that's to respect Carrie Fisher, like keep her character alive and active, but also pay respect to the deceased. So I like how they're doing it. It would be really cool to get a Princess Leia stand-in, but I respect the route that they're taking, and I kind of agree with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, it just goes to show with this one senator we talked about last episode, or maybe a couple episodes ago, how we think either he's the biggest idiot on the council, or he's like actually Empire sympathizer, just like working incognito. And this kind of just solidifies that, because everything that he says, like, it's either super exaggerated to make her look bad, or it's just baseless. And it's what's up, Jax?
So yeah, Jax is banging on the door behind me.
But like, I don't know if anyone, or if you watched any of the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp stuff, but like every 5 minutes, objection, and this guy's doing the same thing, right? Anything whenever the situation seems like it's slightly not going his way, objection. And like most of the time he's getting his way, until that evidence comes in. He's like, I object to like the highest degree, or something. He says something along those lines. It's like, dude, like, I mean, just say objection. They're already shooting.
Well, but it's obvious that like everyone kind of knows it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But
yeah, everyone's like kind of, you can see, like, if you read the room, everyone's happy that she isn't getting canned for this, so everyone's really on her side, except for this one dude, but like they're all too busy playing politics to actually stand up for what they know is right. Also, exactly. Like there's a line that he said that like when he said it, I'm like, this is dumb. He's like, everyone knows. He said something along the lines of like, you're abusing your power for personal gain. And it's like, if you think about it, she's literally gained nothing. She gained maybe the potential to save Ezra,
their power,
which is she gained maybe the potential to save Ezra, but even that at this point in the show is unconfirmed, and she has risked everything. So she hasn't really done anything for personal gain. He's just like making these baseless accusations to make her look like some like selfish warmonger, and like that's just not the case,
Right.
So, and then obviously we get C-3PO coming in, and he's always
cool to see him.
Yeah, well, he's almost showing the same sass energy that Hu Yang does. Like, not quite to that degree, but he's definitely like, just the way that he talks and says and presents the evidence, and it's like, oh, you don't need my ID. Like, screw you,
Well, it's
It
funny
was
how
kind
he
of
kind of
funny.
like scoffs at that Senator Ziono. He says that one line about like, are we going to accept this evidence from a mere droid? And you see Chopper in the background with that one
Yeah,
pilot like almost coming out of his seat after
you
him.
can't understand Chopper, but you know what he's saying.
Yeah. All right, so we move on from that. We're back to Ahsoka, still traveling with the Star Whales or the Purgle, whatever we call them. She's training with a recording of, it's like a recording hologram of Anakin. And she tells Hugh Yang that Anakin actually made 20 or more recordings like that. And that was the last one he made for her.
Yeah.
And kind of reminiscing about like what a good master he was.
Mm-hmm.
Now, debatable, but I mean, I guess, after the last episode, she kind of,
I mean, with the cards that they were dealt, I think he did a good job. Do I think he
best
made
for
some
what they had.
mistakes? Yeah. Do I think he made some mistakes? Sure. And did I think I mean, obviously he fell, but I don't think him falling to the dark side made him a bad master, because the whole point of being a master is to teach. And he
Yeah.
taught Ahsoka a lot, and he was there for her like constantly, even when
Well,
it
more
was
than
like
anybody
annoying for
else
him. Yeah.
was, right? When the
Yeah.
whole Jedi Council turned on her, he was the one who's always had
He
her
had her back.
back.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think if we look at Anakin in terms of solely being a master and Ahsoka's master, I think he did a good job with what he had to do, because he couldn't teach her to be a traditional Jedi. We went over that a couple episodes ago.
Right.
He had to teach her how to be a general, not
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
necessarily just a soldier, but he had to teach a child how to fight and how to command a battlefield. Like, that is mind-boggling. I mean, the Jedi have been kidnapping children for hundreds of thousands of years, but that's besides the point.
Yeah.
She
I
was a
guess we can get into
child.
that another time.
Yeah, she's a child that had to learn how to command platoons of soldiers. Like, that is,
Yeah.
I know adults that can't do that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and it's their job. So, and she did it successfully
Yeah.
because of what he taught her. So, I think he was a
Yeah.
great master.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think maybe not the best Jedi, obviously for
Yeah.
reasons, but as far as being a master is concerned and keeping his student alive and making sure she's skilled and trained, I think he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. Hu Yang tells her that the whales are decreasing in speed and should be arriving shortly. Hu Yang is complaining about how improbable it is that they arrive where they want to, right? Where Sabine is, and it's kind of fun. Ahsoka kind of is like jabbing him, kind of messing with him.
Yeah,
Like, well, why
I
didn't you
like
say
that.
something? Like, what,
Yeah,
And,
he's like,
and
I
then
did.
he kind of realizes like what she's doing there, and he kind of shuts up. And he's like, okay, I see what you're doing. Um, the whales come out of hyperspace and they come to a slower speed anyway. And Ahsoka and Hugh Yang kind of realize something's wrong, something's happening. You kind of hear some explosions off in the distance. You see some light kind of coming through the Purgle's mouth, and they obviously know something's wrong. So they get in their ship and they take off and realize that they arrived right into a massive minefield. Hugh Yang says to Ahsoka, well, at least the whales are providing some cover, once they get out and about. And they almost immediately, as he says it, they start blasting off into hyperspace. Just jump out of there, right? Because
Yeah.
they know they're in danger. And Ahsoka gives them some shit again. You had to say something. So they make it through that minefield. They see, as soon as they make it out of that minefield, they see that enemy ship, the Eye of Sion.
Yeah.
And sorry, they see the Eye of Sion, and they are immediately engaged by enemy fighters. And Ahsoka dives the ship towards that debris field where we've found out that the Purgle is basically this giant graveyard, right? So it's all these like skeletal remains, and they dive right for that to try and evade these fighters. You got anything for that?
I mean that scene's kind of straightforward.
Yeah,
There's not a whole lot to unpack there. They arrive. We already knew this was going to happen, because at the end of the previous episode, Thrawn's like, yeah, blast them, throw the mines out. So you knew that they were going to jump into a war zone. You could actually, if you're listening, while they're still inside the Purgil, but once they get into the galaxy, you can hear the explosions going off. So you already know what's happening.
Yep.
And then they just, they get out and realize, oh crap, we got to figure this out, and they take off. It's not really a
But
whole
I love
lot
how
there.
like Hugh Yang is more worried about like getting cover for them and not that these mines are like exploding these like Purgle that have helped them and this like majestic beast in the sky. And he's like,
Yeah,
well, at least they're providing cover.
I mean, that is a very what's the word that I'm looking for? Like mortified way to look at it. But at the same time, if the legends are to be believed, this is where Purgo come to die. Like this is where all the old ones come and just
Yeah.
stop
Yeah,
existing.
but I don't know. All these ones are ready to die. You know what I mean? They're just helping these guys out. They come out of hyperspace and just start getting exploded.
Yeah, well, as much as they try to personify Hu Yang, he is still a cold calculating robot. So
Nah, back to Thrawn. He's with his troops. They're being told that the minefield has been triggered. Ahsoka, they realize Ahsoka's alive. I mean, he kind of comes to that conclusion on his own. Morgan
yeah.
gives him this like tablet like thing with all this information
Oh
she
yeah.
could find on Ahsoka, and Thrawn from this tablet finds out that her master is Anakin, or
And
was
craps his pants a
Anakin.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's obviously intrigued by this information, right? He tells that Captain Enoch to have their fighters stand down from from pursuing Ahsoka, and Morgan again, thinking she has a little more say than she actually does, starts to question him, and he kind of explains that what he wants is to control the variables, control the outcome, put her on a path that he can stay one step ahead of her.
Yeah.
And she just doesn't understand that. I think this kind of falls back to Thrawn's like, you're supposed to be this mastermind,
Yeah.
whatever.
A little bit. This sort of calls back to what I believe is like the real Thrawn.
Yeah,
Being more tactical and not so brash. He's very calm and calculated. It's like, look, we could send a bunch of dudes at her right now, but she's inside a place that the only reason she hasn't been destroyed is because she's a Jedi wielding the Force, right?
yeah,
So we don't want to send more troops in there because they'll just die, not from her, but just from that area. So let's figure out where she's at. They do end up like, I don't know, carpet bombing, I guess is for lack of a better term.
basically,
Yeah,
yeah,
once they find her. So he's just like, look, hold up, let's think this through a little bit, and then we will nudge her in a direction of our choosing.
yeah.
Which I mean, he does. So
No,
he
absolutely.
succeeded there. Yeah.
So it cuts back to Ahsoka and Hugh Yang. They're still trying to navigate their way out of this debris field. Ahsoka puts the ship down on this piece of skeleton, basically, of a
Yeah.
Purgo, and turns the ship down and just kind of waits, tries to see if they're still being followed. Um, they basically deduce that the enemy has found Thrawn already because of this attack, because of the ambush. Thrawn would be the one to put that in motion. They kind of deduce that they've already met. Thrawn is alive and well,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's a quick scene with it cuts to them, right? Cuts back to Ezra and Sabine still traveling with these little hermit crab people, whatever
Yeah.
they're called.
Legitimate hermit crabs, honestly.
Yeah, they look exactly like hermit crabs. It's kind of
Yeah.
frightening. But
They're a little.
Sabine,
At least their babies are kind of cute
yeah, a
with
little.
the big old bug eyes.
Sabine explains. You get the sense that Sabine has already been explaining, what's happened since he's been gone. Right, the Empire's fallen. Everything that's happened, like the significant battles. They mentioned. God, I can't remember that battle that they mentioned from one of the main movies, but they mentioned whatever the hell was that
It
last
was
main battle.
Endor.
Endor, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So he's questioning about all that. Ezra asks Sabine that how did you find me, and again Sabine says it's complicated. She has to evade the questions. Ezra says we can talk about something else, but getting here or getting home is very important.
Yeah.
Um, I don't, and we can come back to this because there's a little more to this scene, but it's like he just has no urgency and no curiosity of like how the hell did you get here? Like how? I mean, I think he
Well,
kind of knows like something's up, but he just seems not to give a shit. I don't know.
I think, well, I mean, he's not the young brash child that he was when he began his training, and he was starting to become a little bit more sage towards the end of Rebels, and I think he is just, I mean, double down on that since being here. He is.
Yeah,
You're talking about a guy that's, um, I forget how long they've been in here, but like I don't know,
like 10 years.
yeah, 10 plus years. In that entire time, it's been him and Thrawn, and not just him, Thrawn, and Thrawn's army.
And
Just
three
him.
witches.
Well, yeah. So just Ezra against Thrawn's army, and these Night Sisters. So he's had to learn to be
Well, listen,
a
he's
little
got
bit
the
more.
crabs.
He does have crabs, but he's had to learn to be more patient and more calculating, much like Thrawn. So I think he knows this is a touchy subject. Like he can sense that. It's like,
Yeah,
ooh, if I push too hard, I'm not going to get the information that I need. So I don't think it's that he doesn't care, I don't think it's like a lack of urgency, but I think he just sort of understands like he's got to follow the Force, and he's got to
he's kind of
be
become this
patient.
like Zen monk type,
Yeah, he's got to be
almost.
patient, especially
Yeah,
he knows who she is. She is still very brash. She's learned a
yeah.
lot in this short series. She's come a long way, but at the end of the day, she's still a Mandalorian,
And she
She's
hasn't
still this
changed much.
yeah, she's still a brash warrior,
Yeah,
and that's her mindset. All these like feelings and emotions and stuff, that's not how she deals with things.
right,
So something is emotionally difficult, she's going to compartmentalize that. She's going to shut it off, and she's not going to want to talk about it. And he knows that. He knows her.
yeah,
So I think that's what it is. I don't think it's a lack of urgency. I just think he's good at reading the room, and he knows. All right, well, right now is not the right time, but let's change subjects, and maybe I can get a little bit more out of her.
right. Well, Sabine changes the subject, tells him that Ahsoka took her on as an apprentice, and Ezra seems shocked.
Yeah,
Like, why?
like everyone
You?
else.
Like, why? Yeah, just like everyone else. So she kind of laughs that off, whatever, gives him a little shit. And then asks, where is Ahsoka? Is she coming? Sabine says nothing, and Ezra says, oh, it's complicated. Again, just like everything else you won't tell me. We cut away from that, and it's Balon and Shin and a few of these. So this is another question. These riders that they're with, these fighters, whatever we want to call them, with the red armor or whatever.
Yeah,
Who the hell are these people?
they're just like, I don't know, lack of a better term, like barbarians. They're just
I don't
natives to the
remember
planet.
like Shin and Balon ever like grouping up with these dudes.
It was in the last episode. Excuse
Did
me.
I? Okay, I'm looking at that.
So when Ren gets waylaid by them and she like beats them all up and then takes off, Balon and Shin were following her, and they saw a group of them standing like up
Oh,
on the
that's what the
rocks
whole
looking
enemy,
over.
my enemy is my
Yeah,
friend
yep. That's
thing,
when they
and
linked up.
that's right.
I
Okay,
guess I guess they didn't like show them shaking hands and being like, "Hey, we're buds now," but essentially
they
that's
just
what
kind of
happened.
assumed. Okay,
Yeah.
so all these riders, Shin, Balon, they come up to this overlook, seemingly tracking Sabine. It's a little short scene, just shows them kind of looking over this cliff or hill. Cuts
Hmm.
back to Thrawn. It's him and the Great Mothers and Morgan Elsbeth. Thrawn asks them to locate Ahsoka in the graveyard. They start again another little laser light show, and they over this like hologram map of the graveyard. Ahsoka and Hu Yang cannot locate Sabine with their scan from their ship. Hu Yang can't do it. Ahsoka says that there's another way to find her, and she tries to use the Force to locate her through their bond. And Hu Yang kind of questions her, like, are you sure your bond is strong enough to find her? Ahsoka just does it anyway. We cuts back to Sabine, and faintly, she hears Ahsoka. She's like
Yeah.
in the middle of a conversation with Ezra. She can kind of hear Ahsoka. Um, it cuts back to Ahsoka. She says, "I see her," And then it's back to the witches, and they basically triangulate Ahsoka's position, and Thrawn tells that Captain Enoch to open fire on those coordinates. You want to add
Yeah,
anything
so
before I
this
move
is
on?
actually this is another like subtle scene that actually has a lot to unpack here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like the way that they filmed it was misleading. Because if you just watch it at face value, it seems like Sabine is able to actually hear and or possibly see Ahsoka. But as we progress, we learn that that is not the case because she's like, I don't know. I felt something, but I'm not sure what it
Right.
was. So clearly, like, and that honestly, it makes sense. This is why I feel like the way that they filmed it was misleading. It makes sense that she would feel something and not understand it because her connection to the Force is really not good.
Or
Whereas,
non existent almost.
yeah, well, I mean, we've sort of proven that it's not non-existent. It
Well,
just is not very powerful.
no.
So, but when they were like doing the flip back and forth scenes and showing like the communication, it really felt like it was a strong two-way communication when really it was very strong one way and not so strong the other way. And I think
It
that
was
is
more
because,
Ahsoka like pinpointing where she was, and
well,
not really
and
the other way around.
and she was open to it, right? That's why she was able to sense it. Their bond has become strong enough.
Yeah.
Now, Sabine's strength and knowledge of the Force is not quite powerful enough for her to um, really capitalize on it, obviously. But her bond with Ahsoka has grown to a point where she can at least feel when Ahsoka's reaching out. Now, she didn't know
Right.
what that feeling was because she's
Well, I think she said.
inexperienced.
I think she kind of guessed. She said Ahsoka, or she kind of
No,
like
she
whispered.
didn't.
I thought she didn't.
No,
Oh, I thought she
nope.
like whispered Ahsoka or something like that. Like
It
she knew.
that's my problem with that scene is it's very misleading. It seems like she's acting and reacting based on the sense, but as the scene closes, it's pretty much you see that that's not the case. She's not.
Oh,
She doesn't know it's Ahsoka. She just knows that it's something. She can feel something. And
I
even
gotcha.
Ezra gives her kind of a look, like he knows,
Yeah,
like
he
that
kind of asked her
she's
like,
been
"What
taking a couple
happened?"
steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see the look in his eye. And then something else that was that kind of like I'm still not so sure about is the Night Sisters seemed to be able to track Ahsoka by detecting her use of the Force. To my
Yeah.
knowledge, Night Sister magic and Jedi powers or magic or whatever you want to call it, like those are very separate things that don't intertwine. There, I know there's a thing called Sith alchemy, and maybe Night Sister magic and Sith alchemy kind of mesh, but I haven't, and maybe I just my memory's crappy, but to my knowledge, I haven't really seen um, or Night Sister magic and Jedi powers affecting each other. So it's kind of weird to me that they were able to sense Ahsoka just because she was reaching out to Homegirl, whatever her name is, because I'm terrible.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't really put that together. I just thought they were using some kind of magic just to find someone in this debris field. I don't
I,
know, but that
I,
makes kind of sense.
I mean, I guess maybe it's not that they were sensing her force abilities, because I guess they could sense that she was coming with the Purrgil. Like they told Thrawn that hey, another Jedi's coming, and
Yeah,
Thrawn was just like,
but
oh,
again, it's
it's
kind of like,
definitely Ahsoka.
well, it's kind of like how are they sensing that, or how do they figure that out? You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
I mean
not really
that's
explained.
their magic. They're kind of like seers,
Yeah.
you know, and that's how they're portrayed as the three sisters of
Oh, right,
Greek
right.
mythology. So
Yeah,
they're
we talked about that
seers. They
last
can kind of
episode.
they can kind of see, I guess, the future a little bit, or at least have a bigger view of what's going on like around them.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just what's going on, and they're just like homing in on her life energy or whatever. So maybe I'm just off base.
No, I
But
don't know.
still a cool scene. It was
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool.
it's neat to see that. It's neat to have it shown how the bond between Ahsoka and Sabine has strengthened.
Yeah. Ahsoka and Hu Yang are under fire. They basically under this bombardment from, I think it's the Ion that's bombarding them, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Ahsoka says she knows where we're going, and Hu Yang says, "Wonderful, so on our way."
Hmm.
Like let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
They make their way out of the graveyard and out of the way from the barrage of fire. Thrawn says, well done, we flushed her out of hiding. And he tells Enoch to have their fighters, that fighter group that was already engaged with them, re engage with Ahsoka.
Hmm.
So back to Sabine. They see Balon and Shin off in the distance, and Ezra says to Sabine, friends of yours? And she says no. They turn to go another way. Balon tells Shin to contact Thrawn, kill Sabine and Ezra, and take your place in the coming Empire. Shin's kind of looking at her like, what the hell? You won't help. And Balon tells her that your ambition drives you in one direction and my path lies in another. And Shin sends word to Thrawn about having the location of Ezra. And Balon says one parting lesson to Shin: impatience for victory will guarantee defeat. And she kind of just looks at him with some understanding, but it's almost like an adolescent understanding, like, I think I understand you. And they just kind of nod, and she takes off with that group of fighters that's with them.
This
That's,
is
yeah.
yeah. Um, kind of big.
Right.
Not necessarily so much to unpack, but a big scene because like this is where you really see that Balon has never cared about Thrawn or the Empire. Like we've talked about it before because we've
Yeah.
already seen this whole series,
Yeah.
and we've speculated from a point of what do we think is going to happen next. But as far as like if you were watching this show for the first time and you get to this point, this is where you finally realize Balon could not care less about the Empire or Thrawn or any of this stuff. He is on his
Yeah.
own mission, and his mission is not one of war. That he's trying to either get away. Excuse me, sorry. He's trying to either get away or just break that cycle completely.
Yeah.
And um, I think that although he's told Shin about his plans, not any specifics, but like that his goals are kind of different than what he's letting on. I think she's finally now understanding, and she cares about Balon, and she cares about her mentorship with him, and is you can see it in her face. Like she always looks either really pissed off or she looks like really happy that she's creating like chaos.
Yeah.
She's this, like we've said before, this cute little ball of anger. But this guy that has basically taught her everything that she knows and been this mentor and quasi father figure for her is basically saying, "All right, kid, it's time for you to beat feet and figure it out because I'm going this way. You want to go this way, and I'm not stopping you."
Yeah.
And so it's kind of it's a big moment for her and for the viewers. Um, I
Yeah,
think
I'm
he already
surprised
saw
how
this coming.
willingly she was to take off, though. I think that's the only surprising thing. But I think she kind of just, I guess how I see it, she kind of just understands that like he's just a guy. He's not going to change his mind. This is what's happening. He's there for another path. I think she kind of already realized that a little bit going into this, and
Well,
it just is what it is, and she takes off.
and yeah, yeah, and I also think it's just that she's, at least from what we've seen, she's hung on his every word, right?
Yeah,
So he could have said, "Hey, you and I both are gonna go this way," and ignore all of this, and she would have reluctantly followed, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think
He
so.
he essentially told her to follow her own path away from him, and because so far what we've seen and what we know, she like her every action is based on what he says. He said leave, so she left. It's
Yeah.
like that. It's like that scene in oh, what was that dog movie? Airbud, I think, where he's like he's trying to convince the dog to go away, you know, and the dog didn't want to, but in this case, the dog listened.
It's like an Airbud reference.
Yeah. Welcome to our channel. We mix Airbud and Star Wars here.
Yeah, you know. Oh shit.
But yeah, like she's just listening to him. If he would have told her to come, she would have came. But
Well, and
he
he
told
has
her
a
to
good
follow her own
point.
path, so she did.
Yeah, yeah, and he has a good point. Like her ambition is growing. She's very. He recognizes what she is, and it does not seem that that's the kind of path that
Yeah,
he's
well,
on either.
she
Right?
is truly a Sith. She's somebody that
Yeah.
uses anger and emotion to empower her abilities, and he is not. And he is not trying
Right.
to rebuild the Sith, and he is not trying to convince a Sith to step off of that path. He is using a dark force user to his own goal, and at this point, he doesn't have use for her anymore
Yeah.
because he is continuing on this next leg of his journey, which, I mean, in his core, he believes in the uh, idea of the Jedi. Not, not. I mean, obviously, he doesn't believe in the Jedi Council and what they turned into and their fall and the reasons they fell and all of that stuff. Like he sees the Jedi, though I guess we can call them the modern Jedi for what they were, which was very flawed. And so he likes the idea of the Jedi. He just doesn't like what the Jedi turned into, and what led to their fall. She's not a Jedi,
Right.
so she doesn't really have a place in his bigger plans. Uh, as far as what we've discussed in previous iterations of this, so he basically said like, "This is where we part ways. You are on your path. I'm on my path. Like, hasta luego."
Back to Thrawn, he sends two gunships to assist Shin and Balon. Stormtroopers load up into these ships and they take off. Back on the ground, the fighters are engaging Sabine and Ezra, obviously the ones that Shin is with, and they're in this they're in this like caravan with the crab people, right?
Yeah,
They're all coming after him. So during this chase, one of the what do they call these crab people? They've got to have a name. I think they call them the Nadi or something like that.
they speak the Nadi language. That's what the planet is
Yeah,
called. Is
is
Nadi.
that what?
And
Okay. Well,
everyone that
anyway,
everyone that talks in a foreign language, the caption is naughty language.
I'm just gonna keep
So
calling them the crab people because I don't know what they're called. But
okay,
anyway,
sounds good.
during this chase, one of these
Reminds me of South
transports
Park.
gets you what?
I said it reminds me of South Park.
The crab people.
Crab people,
Yeah.
crab people.
So during the chase, one of these transports gets basically shot down, damaged, and disabled. I don't know if you think about South
I'm
Park all
sorry.
day now. Ezra tells them all to circle up, surround the downed craft, right? Try to protect the one that's vulnerable now. It cuts back to Ahsoka as coming to the surface of this planet, being chased by these fighters again, and she sees this group on the ground. Ezra and Sabine see Shin approaching. Ezra asks, "Who is that?" And Sabine says, "She's like you, but lacks your sense of humor." He asks if she has a lightsaber, and she says, "Oh yeah,
Yup.
yup." The fighters dismount their howlers, those big wolf bat things, whatever we decided they were.
Yeah, they're cool. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, yeah. They surround this caravan, and Ezra and Sabine prepare to fight them. Cuts back to Ahsoka. She's in a dogfight with these fighters, and she tells Hu Yang that basically she's going to jump out of the ship. She jumps out, lands. Hu Yang takes off with these fighters following him, and she looks up, and I guess ironically, she's basically standing right next to Balon, who then says, "Well, this is a surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't expect to see you again." And Ahsoka says, "Disappointed," and Balon says, "No. However, I can't allow you to interfere." And a fight ensues between these two. So, anything to add?
I mean, we're getting to the meat and potatoes really at this point because we're building up. It, it's obviously an exchange that Balon wasn't expecting. I think at this point he was hoping he could get off scot free and continue on. But he also understands that to keep the Thrawn off his back, Shin has to succeed. And so he's
Yeah. I
not
think he's
willing
kind of
really.
torn between doing what he's doing and still protecting Shin, right?
Well, I don't know about that because he knows that Ahsoka, at her core, is a Jedi. Like, obviously, fallen to a degree and not necessarily following the council's edicts, which is why I mean every time he's fought her, he's never really tried to kill her, other than that last time. You know, every time they've interacted, it's been him, for lack of a better term, monologuing. I think at his core, he really would like to convert her or convince her that like he's on the right path because he doesn't
Yeah.
see her necessarily as an enemy, you know. So, but he also knows that if she gets involved, it's going to interfere with what he's trying to do. Because if Shin fails, and they see he's a big reason why Shin fails, the Thrawn's going to come after him, or at least he's worried about that. Or I mean, because he's not invested in anything that's really going on, so because he's concerned with is finding whatever it is that he's looking for. So the only real explanation is that he needs Shin to succeed so that he can be left alone to do what he's got to do. If Ahsoka gets involved, whether or not Shin lives or dies, she's still not succeeding. I don't think he's really concerned with Shin's life. I think he's just concerned with her success.
Yeah, I can see that.
But really, what we're going to get into is once they actually start fighting.
Yeah. So back to Sabine and Ezra. Sabine tries to give him a lightsaber, and he outright refuses. He won't even take her blaster that she tries to offer, and basically says the Force is his ally. They start fighting. It cuts back to Balon and Ahsoka. They're dueling. Ahsoka holding a little more confident this time in this fight with Balon. They still seem pretty evenly matched at this point. But it's real short cut to them. It cuts right back to Sabine and Ezra. Shin comes up behind Ezra and tries to just lop his head off, and he ducks at the last second and kind of knocks a little lock of hair off the top of him. And Sabine starts
Sorry.
using this lightsaber, it's cutting around the battle to these different stormtroopers and whatnot, and Sabine starts using a lightsaber against them, and then basically helps Ezra against Shin. She kind of defeats a lot of these troopers and kind of teams back up to go against Shin with her and Ezra. We see the fighters approaching. Did I say stormtroopers? I did, didn't I? They're not there yet.
No, they are there.
Are they?
Yeah, Shin gets there in the storm. Well, actually,
No, they're
They're
not.
not.
They're not.
They're
It's
not.
just these like red armored guys that they're kind of chopping through.
Yeah.
I haven't got to that point yet. That's my
Yeah.
fault. That comes in a minute. But anyway, Sabine starts using this lightsaber, helps Ezra against Shin. We see the fighters approaching. Shin throws Ezra into the side of this craft, kind of knocks him out for a minute, and Sabine attacks her. Back to Ahsoka and Balon. They lock up, and Balon says, "You can't defeat me." she says perhaps, but I don't have to. And Hu Yang comes in out of nowhere, and it looks like he drops like a barrage of flares almost is what
Yeah.
it looks like, and it kind of just distracts Balon for a minute, and Ahsoka I think steals his howler honestly and takes off
Yeah, yeah, she
towards
does.
Sabine.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
I don't mean to cut you off, but I think we missed it. There was a dialogue between Ahsoka and Hu Yang when they were flying up to the scene, and Hu Yang's like we can't land because all this stuff is happening, and Ahsoka's like, we don't need to land, and
yeah.
he's like, we did this before and it didn't work out, and she's like, well, just don't do that again. He's like, but I felt so bad when I didn't show up in time last time. She's like,
Yeah.
no, you didn't. But yeah, so I
That
forget
was a
what
pretty funny
episode.
exchange. Yeah.
There was another episode where they tried to do this maneuver and it failed. I forget what episode it was, but essentially the timing didn't match up.
Yeah.
And now I don't know if it really shows any progression. I think it just shows that they got the timing right this time. They worked it
Yeah.
out. Maybe Hu Yang's trust in her plan was a little bit more on point or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it was kind of funny and it was really cool. Yeah, I don't know if they were flares. I think they were just air to ground blasters that
Yeah.
he launched out because there was like legitimate explosions when they hit the ground.
That's true. Yeah, there
Yeah.
definitely was.
But yeah, like it created a distraction and she was able to take off. But obviously Balon wasn't super concerned because he saw her go and he's just like, okay.
Yeah, well, you can kind of see his face where he's like, he definitely for a minute there looks a little torn whether or not he should go after her or not. He kind of looks at her and then he kind of, you can see him, he decides, he's here for a reason, he's on his path, and it is what it is. And
I think that's also a call out to he really wants Ahsoka on his side. I've said that basically from the beginning. Um, he doesn't want Ahsoka as an enemy. He doesn't want to kill her. I mean, he's willing to.
yeah,
Obviously, we've seen that he's willing to.
yeah,
He doesn't want to kill her. He wants to convince her. And so, like, and even in this exchange, none of them are throwing killing blows at each other. It's all they're all just like defensive parries. Like one sort of attacks and the other blocks, and the other kind of attacks and they block. Like I, I don't think Ahsoka wants to kill him either. I think they're both in the same mindset at this point, right? Before, when Ahsoka was fighting Balon, she didn't want to kill him. She was in that mindset where she wanted to stop all of the killing, which is odd. Not really odd, but kind of I guess odd's really the better word. Because like in her little Force dream with Anakin, he basically was telling her, "You're gonna have to keep killing people." And in that Force dream, she's like, "What if I don't want to kill people anymore?" And he's like, "You're gonna die. If you don't kill these people, they're gonna kill you." That's what held her back against Balon. Is she's reached a point in her life where she's tired of all the killing, which is weird because that is exactly why Balon's doing what he's doing. He's
yeah,
also tired of all the killing. Now, he may be going about it the wrong way from at least our perspective and the Jedi perspective because he's willing to do some killing and some messed up stuff to stop all of it. But their internal drives are very similar. They're just going at it in opposite ways. But because of that training that she had with Anakin's Force Ghost, she's not as reserved as she was before. And I think that's why she held out against him. She used her two lightsabers,
yeah,
and she used a lot of very aggressive fighting forms. She wasn't necessarily taking kill shots, but she wasn't holding back either. Whereas before, like that last time, like, oh, you asked me, like, why did Ahsoka only use one lightsaber against this dude? Well, she
yeah.
wasn't trying to overpower him. She was just trying to be defensive. And then by the time she realized, crap, it's time to do or don't, it was too late. She didn't have the opportunity anymore. Whereas now, like, she used her two lightsabers. It's her, I forget, I don't know what all the forms are called, but it's like her deadliest fighting form. And but she still used that form more or less defensively. But like, if she could have killed him, if I think she would have. And I think he is still being very, like, once again, if he had to kill her, he would have, but he didn't want to. I think their mindsets are just like so in sync. They're so like at the same level. It's crazy to me because if they would just spend 10 minutes talking to each other, and leveling with each other, I feel like a lot of the conflict between the two would be non-existent. I really
Yeah,
do think
maybe,
they
but
could
I
work
do
together.
I do believe that like Balon's the whole greater good aspect would never sync with Ahsoka very much. You know
Well,
what I
he's
mean?
got a he's got a means justify the ends mentality,
Yeah,
uh, or the ends justify the means mentality, whereas Ahsoka does not. So
no,
that's where they differ.
yeah,
Their goals, what they want, their theologies, I guess you would say, are pretty much the same. But Balon is willing to cross the line to get there, and
yeah,
Ahsoka at this point, Ahsoka has redrawn that line, so she's willing to go a little bit further, but she's not willing to cross it.
all
She's
right,
not willing to, like, she would never take on a Sith apprentice in order to complete her goals, whereas Balon did.
yeah, yep. All right, back to Ezra. He kind of comes to after being knocked to the ground by Shin. The stormtroopers then land. Here they are.
Yeah,
So ignore me from earlier. Back with Thrawn and Morgan, they're overlooking this. It was pretty neat. They basically have this like hologram battle map where they can kind of see everything going on, where the
yeah.
troops are, where they're landing, who's
I, I
winning, whatever.
am I am a little confused. So they got all these little hexagons moving
Yeah,
around and stuff, right? And like none of them are labeled. They're kind of color coded with orange and red, or
yeah.
I guess yellow and red,
I think there was some blue on there too.
maybe. But
Yeah,
they're not labeled. So it's weird to and this is probably just me being picky, but he's like, "Oh, we're missing one." And it's like,
yeah.
how do
He
you? I mean, I
definitely
get he said we're missing one, um, not
mercenary.
bounty hunter, yeah, mercenary. It's like, how do you know that? And he also is like, oh, it's
Balin
skull,
skull.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
he
missing
definitely
Balon,
realizes that he's missing.
and it's like I guess like using his tactical knowledge, he could infer that Balon is left, but he doesn't know what Balon wants. Like Balon hasn't disclosed that information, so
Yeah.
it's it's just weird.
It was a little
I
strange
hate to
because
say it. I think
technically
it's
he's like up on the ridge somewhere, right? So like, can you not see him on that battle map? That he's not maybe not even a half mile, quarter mile away from where this is all taking place. Like, I
well,
don't
he
understand.
he's using sensor droids.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if Balon's not in the purview of the sensor droids aren't going to pick up Balon.
Okay. Well, that's
And you
fair.
see like one of them in one of the scenes for like a couple seconds.
Yeah.
Um,
I think when they call the retreat.
Yeah, yeah. So he's able to see the immediate battlefield from where he's at on his little table. My
Yeah.
thing is it's like it's not labeled. I guess maybe you could have sensed via body language or whatever that Balon's a little bit different, and so he's the one that's gone. I don't know. I hate to say it, but I feel like this is another one of those situations where it's kind of bad writing, where Thrawn just sort of knows Balon's gone, and he's able to tell with
We
his
really need a whole season of like the programmers for these. You know what I mean? These little mechanisms, these battle maps, like the behind the scenes with these engineers of how how they really make all this
yeah.
equipment. The real tech guys. What's going on behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, honestly though, if we're gonna get real, right? They got these. He's got these sensor droids
I'm kidding, obviously. If
monitoring.
you didn't pick up
Yeah,
on that,
I know,
okay.
but I'm not kidding. All right.
Yeah.
he's got these droids monitoring the battlefield.
Yeah.
He could label like a general consensus of like, I know he's got it color coordinated to a certain degree, but it could
Yeah.
be like, hey, these are the force using dudes on my team, and like it's a droid, so it can sense like specific data. He could label them. He
Yeah.
could know who's who and what's what.
I mean,
Like, because
maybe it is. I don't know. I didn't get
he,
a long enough
if
look at it, to be honest.
I mean the map it's a hex map, which is what we're going to try to use in D&D. It's a
Sweet.
hex map that he's using, and it shows the movements of people taking up that full hex space and color coordinated. But it's like it's got I think yeah blue, yellow, and red. Which among that you'd think he'd want more information on key players.
You would think.
And I would assume that having a droid like a robot that can sense specifics of what's going on, they would probably relay information at a minimum on like the key players. Let alone all of his stormtroopers are unique individuals based on the armor modifications and the way that they've been repaired. Everyone in his army is unique. So granted, stormtroopers have alphanumerical ID numbers, so he could have those placed on their hexes. But as far as like the rest of his people, they could have been labeled, but they weren't. And so for him to just automatically know who is missing, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
you're
there's a
gonna have
rant.
to. No, I get you. You're gonna have to talk to Thrawn about that one.
Yeah, no, he's stupid.
All right, Sabine and Shin are fighting. Ezra pulls Sabine away from like immediate danger. Shin's about to slam her saber on the ground on her, and Ezra pulls her away from him. And as she's being pulled away, Sabine uses like this flamethrower wrist thing that
Yep.
I guess these Mandalorian has. It was pretty cool. Um, they know that they're surrounded by these stormtroopers. They're just completely surrounding this caravan. Shin gives the order to destroy them, meaning, basically kill Ezra Sabine. Ezra says, wait. He tells her, wait,
Yeah.
we can talk about this, which is a little weird.
Well,
Whatever, we can talk about this, and then
if you
asks,
watch Rebels, this is very true to his personality. I actually really like this whole little, oh, like take us
okay.
as prisoners or whatever. Like
Yeah, but like, who
he,
asked to be taken as a prisoner? That's a little like,
Ezra
yeah,
does.
okay. They asked to be taken as a prisoner. Shin says fire again, and then Ahsoka shows up out of nowhere on this howler, blasts a couple like stormtroopers out of the way, and a fight ensues. Ahsoka goes right after Shin. The Ezra and Sabine go after all these stormtroopers. You see Hu Yang flying above. He sees them. They're all back together, and he says, "I hope I survive long enough to see the outcome," which is just kind of funny. Ezra and Sabine take out a lot of these stormtroopers, not all of them, but a good amount of them. It cuts back to Thrawn, who's watching on this battle map again, and again he knows that Ahsoka's there somehow with this. I mean, he must have an orange colored
I think the
octagon or whatever the hell
Jedi
it
were
is.
blue. I think it made the Jedi blue,
Yeah,
which
whatever
he
it
already
is.
knows. He already knows Ahsoka's in the mix. So when he sees
Yeah, yeah,
another blue hex, that can be easily inferred. He knows there's
yeah.
3 Jedi. So when one more shows up, oh, okay, that's the
Oh,
third
that's who
one.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, "What a rare sight, almost like the Jedi of old." And then he recalls the gunships and says that it's an unfortunate but acceptable loss given the absence of Balon, which I think almost took that as like a jab at Morgan. Like she brought him like an unreliable
Yeah.
mercenary.
Yeah.
He says the first meeting or the first match with Ahsoka Tano was, in the grand scheme of things, a success. And Lady Morgan, obviously disagreeing with him, thinks that she knows better. But then Thrawn tells her that with all their enemies distracted, which I guess was his point, all of their cargo's almost completely loaded onto his ship, and they are almost ready to leave this place, right? And that was his overall goal.
Yeah.
So, and that's that scene. I know it jumps around a little bit. There's a
I
lot
hated that
that's
scene.
going on there. Yeah, it's. I have my own issues with it, but you go ahead.
And we'll see it later on. But for somebody who is so tactically inclined, you know, he's essentially saying we've bought ourselves enough time that there's no way these guys can interfere anymore, so there's no
Yeah,
reason to waste more bodies. If he was correct in that statement, I'd agree 100%. Like, why fight an enemy you don't have to fight when you don't have to?
yeah.
I get it. Like, great idea, Thrawn. Oh my god, what a genius. But I mean, and this is for in next episode you realize he was 100% wrong. 1,000% wrong.
You're
There's
coming from
no
someone who's like this master tactician,
yeah, he's
right?
supposed to be this master tactician that knows everything. And granted, it did take them. They said it would take 3 days to load up the ship so they could take off. It took
Yeah.
essentially 2 days for them to get to this point. So theoretically speaking, there isn't enough time for them to get back. But Ahsoka's got a freaking ship.
Yeah.
And he should know that she's got a ship because he didn't shoot it down.
No, Hu Yang, a freaking droid, is just flying around the air, like evading all of these fighters somehow.
Like, I mean, and that's like I can get behind that. Hu Yang's a
Yes.
very old droid with a lot of knowledge. I would assume his skills in piloting a ship are pretty high up there. Also because he's a droid, so he can calculate things very quickly. He's
Yeah.
he's smart, experienced, and a robot. All things that would make piloting a ship super awesome and efficient. And like Thrawn would at least know enough to realize that they've got a ship in play, a
Well,
starship.
I mean, you definitely know he knows that.
Yeah. So for him
So,
to say,
yeah.
we've ran out the clock enough. There's plenty of time for us to finish packing up and get
I
out
mean,
of
maybe he
here.
wants her to meet up with him somehow. I mean, I can, because of the whole Anakin thing, and
Listen,
he knew
Linda,
Anakin or whatever. I don't know.
I think we've already talked about my theory that Thrawn is not really trying to restart the Empire.
Yeah.
Which, if his true goal is to save his people and not restart the Empire and potentially get the New Republic to help him, then I kind of get where he's at. But
I
he
just don't
could
think
have.
Disney's going to be nuanced enough for that. I think it's just strictly like he's trying to start the new empire.
Well, if that was his
In my
real,
opinion.
if that was his real goal, right? If his real goal is to not lead the Empire, then there's no reason for him to fight Ezra. There's no reason to fight Ahsoka. There's no reason for any of this. He could just say, "Hey guys,
Yeah.
I know I was batting on the wrong team earlier, but I'm Team Republic now as long as you'll help me out." That's a very easy message to send out. So
Yeah,
I really I don't know what
trying
he's
to like turn them.
yeah
Right?
I don't know what he's really trying. Maybe honestly, maybe what he's trying to do is cut his losses, take the troops that he does have, and just go straight to his people and abandon everything else. That is something that is
Possible.
possible.
Yeah.
And in which case, like
I mean, are his people like dead at this point? Like, how, do we
I don't know
know? What?
that we don't. I don't know.
Okay.
Even with like the books and stuff, at least from what I've read and or read up on, there's not a whole lot of information on. I forget what his people are called, but they're fighting the Chiss, or at least were fighting the Chiss. So I don't know. All I do know is the only reason he joined the Empire was to get help to fight the Chiss and save his people.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah,
I just wonder at that point. at this point, if he returns, even if that was his goal, if he finds out they're all slaughtered anyway, he's
I
probably
mean,
going
if
to
his
try and
people are
start his
gone,
own
I don't know
thing
what he
anyway.
would care about doing. You know,
Well,
he.
I don't know that it would be like rejoining the Empire or whatever, but he's probably still not going to be a great dude and try to do his own thing.
I
You know
think
what
he
I mean?
would try it. He's so Thrawn at his heart. I mean, he's a great tactician and strategist, but at his heart, he's a historian. He actually that's where he pulls a lot of his tactics from. Is he looks at the art of who
War.
he's fighting and deciphers like the meaning of that art and
Yeah.
uses art to predict how his enemies would fight. So
Yeah.
he's an art aficionado and a history buff. Like he's a giant friggin' nerd at his core. Like, and he's
Yeah.
real big as far. Although he seems very detached from people in his mannerisms, he's very much into like social constructs. You know, art,
Yeah.
literature, history. Like those are things that he's super interested in, and those are aspects that he uses to help make him the tactical general that he is. And I feel like in this scene where he's like, if we cut our losses, we'll win the day. Like, but you don't though. Like you fail so hard, and that's just not something Thrawn would do. Like,
Yeah, that's why I kind of hope that if they do come up with a second season, it kind of explains more of this to not make him look so incompetent.
yeah, because here's the thing: like, he has beaten insurmountable odds throughout his career. Whether he's outmanned and outgunned and still finds a way to win, or he's an he's an alien of an unknown alien species who rises through the ranks and gains power in a very xenophobic or racist. I don't know how you really want to put it, but the Empire was all about humans are better, and any other species of alien race are of a lesser species. Like
Yeah,
that
we
was
went
their
over that a couple times, I
yeah,
think, in the
that's
last
that
episode.
was their mentality. And despite working for an organization with that viewpoint, he was able to rise to one of the highest ranks in their military.
Yeah,
He was able to navigate political bullcrap and bureaucracy despite everything that was against him and rose to the top, right? So this guy's not just a strategist and a tactician in a battlefield socially, economically. He is also like at a genius level of strategy. He has been able to outplay and outmaneuver literally anyone he's come against. And he can't figure out in 10 plus years, he can't figure out how to take out a single one person, even though he's got a Star Destroyer and like multiple armies within the Star Destroyer.
so
And
do you
then
think Disney just missed the mark, or do you think that it's something that needs to be explained down the road, or could be explained down the road?
I think Disney did what Disney's done with Star Wars in general, and has um what do I want like just did their own thing and ignored good source material.
Yeah, it seems like a reoccurring problem.
Yeah. So and I will reiterate, I liked the Ahsoka series. There are like this. There are certain points
Yeah,
that really irritate me and make me wish Disney did something different. But there was enough good points in this series that I still enjoyed it. I just wish they did Thrawn right. I wish they figured out a way to have it make sense that Ezra survived so long on this planet with Thrawn, because like they didn't explain that at all so far to this point, and in the next episode, which is the last episode, they do not explain how Ezra managed to survive, other than
the only
hiding
yeah
out
the
with the
only thing
crab
they
people. But
Yeah,
like,
the only thing that's ever really mentioned is exactly that, like the crab people. Like he says, they don't stay in one spot long. But like Jesus, if they got the witches to find Ahsoka in like a
yeah,
graveyard in like 2 seconds, and then
the
they right away they find, they send the mercenaries out to find them. I don't know how.
the
It just
the
doesn't make sense.
the witches sensed Ahsoka coming from a different galaxy,
Yep.
a whole different galaxy. Who knows how far away, right? They sensed
Yep.
a chick and her robot and her spaceship flying towards them in the mouth of a burrito.
Inside of a whale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, but you couldn't find and defeat Ezra. So either
Yeah.
he never wanted to find and defeat Ezra, or the writing of this is so terrible that they couldn't figure out a way to explain it.
Well, I see. Okay, yeah, you're right. Because we'll get to this after I think the next episode. But I see three options. One, the writing is just terrible, or they misstep. I shouldn't say it's terrible because there is good points this season, but the writers misstep tremendously with their characters here. Or, it, like you said, he didn't want to find him for some reason. Or as soon as they got banished here together, they had some kind of truce or something that you don't know that went on behind the scenes. I don't know, but that would be a lot of I don't know, headcanon or whatever you want to say.
There
Like,
is
you're
something that
creating.
I can say to the effect of him and Ezra having a deal, right?
Yeah,
Ezra, throughout all of these little battles that he's a part of, he hasn't killed nor tried to kill anybody.
he's actually outright refused a lightsaber and a blaster.
Now, I mean, in next episode, he does build his own lightsaber, but even then,
Does he? Okay.
like he uses. I thought you haven't seen it yet. I thought you did finally watch
I
it.
saw bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
I
He does
watched
build
it.
a new. He
Yeah.
does build a new lightsaber, and everyone's like upset. Like, where did you find a kyber crystal? But I figure on a Jedi spaceship that has all of the pieces parts to building a lightsaber and to train a Jedi, Hu Yang may have stocked one or two kyber crystals. So everyone that complains
Yeah.
about him finding a kyber crystal, like, get bent. I guess like it actually makes sense that he would have some. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I think the thing that makes the most sense is that somewhere along the line, Thrawn and Ezra made a deal, and for some reason they have to keep it a secret, whatever that is, because Ezra's definitely not trying to kill anybody. All he does is force push and dodge.
It
And
would redeem a lot of this story at the end of this season. I'll tell you that.
yeah, if they do a season two, and they explain exactly what that deal was and why it was made, and explore that, it would make sense. There's
Yeah.
not a whole lot else that would. Even the idea of Thrawn wanting to join the good guys for his own gain. If that was truly the case, he wouldn't need the Night Sisters. He wouldn't need. Well, I guess he would need the Night Sisters to call Morgan. But once Morgan gets here, like, he doesn't need the Night Sisters anymore. He wouldn't need Morgan anymore. He wouldn't
Well, they
need.
made that deal, right? We still don't know what that's about the cargo.
It's weird. I hope they do a season two that explains some of this stuff, because
Well, all this needs to be explained at some point because there are so many open ends at the end of this that it needs to be explained. So whether they do this another like a movie that explains some of this or another season two of the whatever it is, it needs to be explained.
yeah.
All right. Anyway, so enough of that. We've gone off on a tangent long enough.
Yeah.
All right. The stormtroopers retreat. They leave Shin. Ahsoka tries to help Shin. Kind of
This
tells
was a
her
cool
like,
scene
"I will
too,
help
yeah.
you." Yeah, and Shin, she just obviously just runs away. She's not looking for any kind of redemption. It doesn't look like.
Well, I think she's hurt. She's super
Yeah.
hurt at this point. Not only has she been defeated, so like her ego's kind of gone, but
Yeah.
her master left her. The organization that hired her and her master abandoned her.
Yep.
So she is
To die, basically. They don't give a shit.
Yeah,
about her.
she
She's
is.
just a merc.
She is so alone at this point,
Yeah.
and she has no idea what to do. But she does know that She's got a huge beef with Mandalorian chick. She's got a huge
Sabine.
beef. Yeah, she's got a huge beef with Sabine. I don't think she's really directly conflicted with Ahsoka, but I mean, Ahsoka is Sabine's master, so she's got beef with Ahsoka in that sense. She doesn't really know. Really probably doesn't care about this Ezra dude, but he's joined up with two people that she's got problems with at this point. Like, and they're like, "Oh, well, help you," which is really good on Ahsoka's end that she's willing to take that step because Star Wars is all about redemption, and I think she's finally starting to realize that. Even with Anakin, she went from the beginning of this series only seeing Anakin as Vader and this evil, terrible person to now seeing that Anakin was a little bit more than that and diving back into his teachings. So, like, but she's not ready to take that step. I feel like if they did a season two, I think there might be a redemption arc for her that's possible.
I think that would be really cool, especially because we know Ahsoka and Sabine are still there. They meet again. Whatever the case is, I think that would be cool.
Well, and her
I
and
don't see that happening,
yeah,
but
her and Sabine could help each other a lot
oh yeah,
because
and learn from Ahsoka, right?
yeah, well, and because Sabine is a very aggressive fighter, which teeters on that edge, and Sabine is just like super passionate, but really strong in the Force, from what we've seen at least.
Yeah,
So they could help each other. They could teach each other and sort of balance each other out. I think that would be a really cool thing to explore in a second season. Is uh, those two sort of more or less reconciling, but obviously, like I would like to see them reluctantly reconciling with each other and learning off of each
yeah,
other. I think that'd be cool.
I agree. Ahsoka reunites with Sabine, and finally Ezra. Hu Yang lands nearby them. Ezra says he has a feeling he might be going home after all. And that's where it ends. So I think
Yeah.
Ezra's feeling that he might be going home is accurate, but again, still has not asked any pertinent questions of like, how the hell did you get here? I don't know why that still bothers me, but I don't know why. He's just not curious at all. I
I
just
mean,
don't.
he is. He's following the Force, right?
Yeah.
Um, Ahsoka sort of did the same way when they were on their way here, where Hu Yang's asking all these questions, and Ahsoka's just like, I gotta follow the Force.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's doing the same thing where he knows he's not going to get straight answers, so he's just going to do. He's gonna follow his feelings. That's like a core tenet of the Jedi sort of mantra is to search your feelings and trust them. So that's what he's doing. He's not going to get straight answers from people, so he's going to listen to and follow the Force, um, which obviously the Force doesn't directly speak. So he's got to go with the flow, and
Yep.
he does.
All right. So overall feelings on the episode. You like it? How did it stack up?
Um, I mean, at this point, as always, not super stoked on how they are portraying Thrawn. Hopefully, they redeem him in a season two. Uh, but overall, I liked this episode. It felt short, but I think maybe that's because there was so
Yeah.
much going on back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
Like in some of the earlier episodes, there were scenes of like crazy awesomeness followed by like a little bit of impactful but like slower scenes. Whereas this one, like even the slow scenes were kind of crazy. Like there was a lot
Yeah.
of stuff still going on. So
Yeah,
it
I
felt
agree.
it felt short. I didn't look at the timestamp on the
I didn't
episode,
either, to be
so I don't
honest
know
with
how
you.
long it actually was, but it felt real short to me.
Yeah, yeah, I feel the same way. It was all right though. I just think after seeing everything now all through episode 8, I think they just kind of missed the mark in the last two, if not three episodes that they did. I think everything was pretty fantastic up until episode five, and it was just that was the best episode of the series, if not some of the extended series.
What's crazy is like after episode 5, all the action ramps up, right? So it's a much more entertain. The episodes are much more entertaining after episode 5,
Yeah,
which I think I'll agree with you is probably one of the better episodes, if not the best. Um, but like it's more visually entertaining because of all the fights and the battles and stuff going on. But
yeah,
story wise and lore wise, it starts to make less and less sense. And that's where my
yeah,
problem is like you're entertaining me with these flashy battles, and I can appreciate that because at the end of the day I'm watching this to be entertained. But at the same time, like there's a lot of stuff that I don't know if it's bad writing or if it's something that's going to be explained later or like I don't know, but it's leaving me very unsatisfied.
yeah. I 100% agree, but I think there's a difference too between like what we're doing and being just like a general fan. Like, 'cause when I watched the first, and I think you same with you. I think I watched everything but that last episode. Um, a
Well, I
little bit
watched it
after it
all the way
first came
through.
out.
I every
No, I know.
day.
I'm talking about like
Yeah.
I know you did, but I think when it first came out, I think it was only like a couple days after it first came out. I watched everything, but I think that last two episodes, and I loved it. I had no problems with it. But then when you get into something like this, and we're making a point to like analyze each episode and kind of
Yeah.
go through it and where it stacks up against like the lore and
I feel
everything at that
like
point.
you know what we do need to do? We need to do
Well,
this for the sequel trilogy. Um because I feel like I know you're a fan. I feel like you watched it from a perspective of like, oh, it's just like space magic and laser swords, and it was
yeah,
entertaining. And if I had watched it with that same mindset, especially if I would have watched it without seeing all of the other Star Wars content that I've absorbed, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But I feel like if you and I went through episode what 7, 8, 9,
yeah.
and maybe this is something we can do later. Like, I really feel like your opinion's going to change.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, just watching this and doing what we're doing, I think back to a couple things that just it doesn't sit well. It's kind of funny just starting this, doing this podcast, doing a recap and whatever. I was at, it was actually over Thanksgiving. We're at my in laws, and they had on episode 8, I believe,
Right.
just on TV, and we were watching it. And there was just some things happening. I was like, God, that's dumb. Like, why on earth would that be happening? Like, just stuff like that. And it's,
Honestly,
yeah,
episode 8 was the worst.
yeah,
When I first watched episode 7, I enjoyed it. I had my problems with it, but at face value, without digging into it, I enjoyed it.
yeah,
When I watched episode 8, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. And when I watched episode 9, I walked away thinking, well, this was probably the best that they could do after 7 and 8. Because 7
yeah,
was okay, 8 was god awful, and 9 was like, well, what do you do at this point, right? Well, they've already mucked it up enough. Like 7 and 8 themselves don't even really make sense as two movies leading from one to another. There's like continuity errors, plot holes, so much crap that doesn't make sense between those two movies. So when you get to episode 9, you're like, well, what do we do now? I really feel like they did the best that they could do. Though I think part of the problem was they used multiple different directors and different scripts. And so, like, 7 was trying to go in one direction. 8 said, nope, we're going to take it in this direction. And then 9 was like, well, you guys just went in polar opposite ways with this storyline. So we'll do our best to weave those together and make it make sense. Um, and so there's there's just a whole lot with that. I feel like, especially like with Raider, our other guy that's going to get on with some of our other episodes. I mean, he just brought his kid home, so we might still have some more time before he can commit a little bit more to the channel. I feel like we might have time to do a sequel trilogy sort of breakdown
Yeah.
if you're down for that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely down. Just making time for it.
That's true.
But yeah,
They're a lot bigger, so we'll have to be more and or less detailed in our breakdown.
well,
Maybe
so
we'll do a couple. Was that
Lauren, Lauren has not seen them. So
really?
she's seen episode 7. So we've been planning on doing like a rewatch, getting through all of them anyway.
Has she seen any
Uh,
of the other Star Wars stuff?
yeah, she's seen pretty much everything, like the episodes 1 through 6. She's seen all
Okay.
that. We've watched. Obviously, we watched Ahsoka together. I'm trying to think of the other one she watched with me. Oh, we watched Rogue One,
Rogue
Solo.
One was I really liked Rogue One.
Yeah, I really like Solo. People had a problem with that one too. I
Solo
don't know
was
why.
okay. I liked Solo, but not nearly as I think as far as Star Wars movies that Disney has put out, I think Rogue One was the best.
Mm,
Um,
by far.
they had some really cool scenes in there, and they lined it right up with Episode 4 with the whole
Yeah,
Vader scene in the hallway, which I think they did a
yeah.
phenomenal
I
job.
thought that was awesome.
But like, I liked Solo, but there were just some weird parts that I didn't agree
Yeah,
with. Although the end
yeah. I
of
get
it,
that.
I was when I watched Solo, I was deployed, and I was a little bit drunk because they provided alcohol for people that haven't been drinking, and um, oh my god, the scene where at the end where Darth Maul's face lights up on the intercom, I fucking jumped out of my chair and was like screaming because
Jesus.
everything that was going on with Solo and all that craziness, and then knowing where Darth Maul was at the time within this episode happening, and realizing like the undertone things that were going on, and I see Darth Maul popping up, and I was like, mind fuck, excuse me, like I was like blown away because Maul's
Did you
so
make a
friggin'
scene?
what's that?
Did you make a scene?
Oh, 100%. It was a full house too. I had to wait like an hour to get into that movie theater. That's how long the line was when that movie came out. It didn't hurt that at that location when new movies came out, like they charged you for popcorn and for drinks, but they didn't charge you for the actual movie because it was a theater that was on base. So
That's
like
sweet.
yeah, so like everyone was trying to watch it, and so it was a full house, and I lost myself.
Well, that's cool. Well, maybe we'll do another Star Wars thing before something else comes out. I know this coming year they've announced a couple things that are supposed to be coming out. I think Skeleton Crew, The Acolyte. I think there's 2 more that are supposed to be.
I don't know Skeleton Crew. Acolyte looks really good.
I think they're
And
supposed to be coming out with a Bad Batch season 2 or something, or
it would
next
be
season of
season
Bad Batch or
3, I
something.
think. I think
Whatever it
they're
is,
yeah,
yeah.
3 or 4. Acolyte
Yeah,
would
so
be
that'll be
dope.
good.
I think Acolyte's the one that is. Is that the one that's going to have? Um, what's his face? Why can't I think of it? He's my favorite dude. Why can't I think of his name right now?
Oh, Keanu Reeves.
Well, yeah, as the dude. Can't think of
But
his
at
name.
least that's the rumor. I don't even know if that's confirmed, to be honest with you. But it's been
Um,
rumored.
yeah, it's supposed. So, from if memory serves me correctly, Acolyte is going to be a series of stories, some of which take place in Knights of the Old Republic. What Revan? Jesus
Oh
Christ!
yeah, yeah.
Where Keanu Reeves is supposedly going to play Revan, which I agree with the casting of Keanu Reeves as Revan. I don't think I've seen anything like fully confirmed, but if
I
they
haven't
did
either.
a Keanu Reeves Revan series, I would probably die. Honestly, it'd be really
That'd
awesome.
be pretty sweet.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, for anyone who's stuck with us this far, We have a lot more coming down. We're planning, as we talked about a couple episodes already, we have a D&D campaign we're trying to put together. I've never done it. Shane's going to be our DM. We have my wife, Raider, his wife potentially, and maybe another couple buddies of ours, who knows, may join us for that. That'll be fun. We are planning. It's probably going to be after the Christmas holidays, after the New Year, before we even get our actual podcast up and running. But you never know. We'll keep everyone updated as we can. We still plan on, doing some more deep dives, or recap and reviews of some content, like some other Star Wars content, like we just talked about. And I know House of the Dragon Season 2, whenever that's airing, we're probably going to do that. I would love to do that.
Yeah, as long as I'm somewhere where I get HBO. Although I have seen that is, and I'm getting a new Xbox for Christmas, so I've seen that it's a lot easier to put VPNs on the Series X. So maybe I can start getting some HBO action going on.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Potentially, because I saw season 1 of House of Dragons. It was dope. It'd be really sick to see
great.
season 2.
You watched it when you were over here, weren't you?
Yeah, I watched all of it while I was over there because it's the only place I could.
That's right.
Your wife was like, "We don't have to watch all of this if you don't want to." I guess she didn't realize how intense of a nerd I was, and I was like, "No, like, if you want to change the channel, go for it. But if you don't have a problem, we're watching all of it." And she's like, "Oh,
right now."
Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, but like Jax," I was like, "If he likes dragons, we're watching this." And luckily, Jax likes dragons. He likes dragons. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it worked out. He was entertained. I was entertained. She didn't have to babysit him so much because him and I just sat on the couch watching dragons.
All right. Well, that's it for us. We're 3PN. I'm Jake.
And I am Shane.
And we'll see you next time.
Yup.